Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first video. I hope you will enjoy it. So for this video, I wanted to talk about a book that I got for Christmas. I'm going to show you. It's this one. It's La collection Dior d'Asdin Alaya, which means Asdin Alaya's Dior collection. And the reason why I wanted to make this video is first of all because Christian Dior is one of my favorite designers, and I saw a video about this. Basically, it's like an exhibition at the Dior Museum in Paris. They made an exhibition about Alaya's private collection because he collected Dior outfits and dresses because he was a fan of Dior. So he had his own private collection of items that he collected. So originally I wanted to make a video about that, about the exhibition and the book. And I was reading through this book. Obviously there are a lot of pictures of Dior dresses, but there are chapters talking about the house of Dior and other topics. And there is one chapter in the middle of the book that focuses on colors and the way Dior use colors. And I thought it was really interesting because obviously color in fashion has always been a topic of conversation. Color is obviously still something that is very trendy now. If you go on TikTok, for example, there are plenty of videos about color analysis, and everyone wants to know what colors suits them best and what color to wear for the season. It's always been a topic of conversation in fashion. And also the color of the year being white. Pantone color of the year being white is a big topic of conversation because obviously, I'm not even sure if white is considered a color, but it is apparently, it's the color of the year. And people had a lot to say about that. Let me know what you think about that color. There is, talk about color disappearing from our everyday life compared to, the 50s or the 60s, for example, where color was a lot more present. And so basically this video is going to focus on Christian Dior's history of color and his chromatic language, if you can call it that. And I'm going to show you a few examples and talk about the history of colors as well. So, what was fashion before color? Obviously, there are always been colors in fashion, and designers always use colors, of course. But images of fashion were mostly black and white before the use of color imagery was widespread. So obviously color existed, but it wasn't yet central to fashion's public identity. But that changed dramatically after World War II. So Christian Dior opened his fashion house in 1947, and at the time things weren't just changing stylistically in fashion, but it was also changing visually. It was at that time that there was a radical revolution in the way that images were being seen, and that coincided with the widespread adoption of color in visual imagery. And at the time of him opening his fashion house, that time coincided with the widespread adoption of color photography in visual media. Until the 1940s, people mostly experienced fashion through sketches and drawings or black and white. So basically, the representation of color in clothes wasn't accurate. The pictures that people saw were pretty much monochrome. They were shades of gray. But that began to shift in the late 30s and the beginning of the 40s with the invention of two new technologies for color photography. So the first one is called Kodachrome, and it was invented in 1935, and it was a new color film that was celebrated for its deep saturation and remarkable durability that was invented by Kodak. And so this film would produce very colorful almost painterly rich colors. But the downside was that it was quite expensive and complex to develop. So as a result, it was mostly used for photojournalism, high-end reportage, and magazine covers. But there was a different technology of color photography that was also developed by Kodak, and it was the Ektachrome that were launched in the early 1940s, which is a different technology of color photography. The rendering was a lot more neutral, softer, less saturated, and the development of the picture were faster and more flexible. It's made it ideal for fashion shoots, advertising campaigns, and lookbooks. So now fashion adds two chromatic languages through these films. The first one was more dramatic and luxurious, and the second one was more practical and reproducible. And Christian Dior was obviously very aware of this visual shift. In 1947, the magazine Claudine used both technologies, Ektachrome and Kodachrome, to present Dior's autumn-winter collection, which was an exceptional choice at the time. This wasn't accidental, as Dior understood that photography didn't simply document fashion, but it also revealed it. And he said, photographs and drawings published in magazine often reveal new aspects of my designs. So for him, color photography didn't just show his dresses, but it transformed how silhouettes and textures and especially colors and nuances were perceived. And so now nuances that were not previously easily perceived became a lot more noticeable. So obviously it mattered a lot for a designer like Christian Dior, who relied enormously on nuances and not excessive colors, like I will talk about later in this video. So now I'm going to talk about colors that Dior loved the most. And what's fascinating about Christian Dior is that his love for colors was rooted in restraint and not excess. At the core, Dior's aesthetic lies a deep attachment to black and white, and he famously said, "For me, a collection could express itself perfectly in black or white. Why deprive fashion and women of the prestige and charm of color?" So this sentence reveals something that is very important to Dior's fashion, is that color only has meaning when it is framed. And so when he opened his fashion house in 1947, that philosophy extended beyond clothing, but it was also a way to shape the space where the clothes were being presented. He would pick environments that were white with pale fabrics and soft lightings, so that nothing would clash with the collection and the garments. And in his autobiography, he also explains his deep attachment to his childhood house in Granville, which is a very nice house, as you can see. And so we can see that the house is painted in this very beautiful pale pink and light gray. And so about this house, he says, "My life, my style, owe almost everything to its location and its architecture. Rendered in a very soft pink mixed with grey gravel, these two colors have remained my preferred tones in couture." And so the decor that he used to present his clothes was almost acting as a background for photographs. So this approach mirrors the logic of using color photography, which is using neutral backgrounds to make the colors pop and stand out clearly without distortion. But Dior's relationship with black and white goes deeper. Historically, black had regained popularity after World War I. After the decorative excess of pre-war years with designers like Paul Poiret or Elsa Schiaparelli, fashion embraced austerity. Dior himself wrote, "Black was dominant. The influence of the war combined with Cubist rigor stripped interiors of all the orgy of oriental colors that had briefly triumphed before 1910. And so, in this context, we can understand that black was perceived as a symbol of seriousness, austerity, but also modernity. In his book that Christian Dior wrote, which is called The Little Dictionary of Fashion, which, by the way, I had no idea it was written by Christian Dior. I thought it was like one of those books that people put on their Insta stories and make Pinterest pictures with, but no, actually it was written by Christian Dior himself. And so in this book, he explained his philosophy of fashion, and he described colors like black, white, gray, but also navy as being true neutrals, and that can be worn daily for any occasion. And he also said that those colors would calm the eye. And he also wrote that on the opposite, bright colors must be used sparingly, not because they're vulgar, but because they have too much impact on the eyes. And so this is precisely why in Dior's work, color is not present all over. It is introduced with a neutral structure. And so Dior transforms color into something more than decoration. It's a sign of elegance, control, and intention. So this philosophy would influence how fashion and later visual culture at large would learn to see colors. So Christian Dior wasn't just a designer. He believed that he had a responsibility to educate the eye. And so for him, good taste wasn't something that was innate, it was something that could be transmitted. And so when he published in 1954 his book, The Little Dictionary of Fashion, the aim was not to address this book to elite clients, but rather to middle class women internationally. And so his goal was to teach women all around the world French good taste. And in that education, color played a crucial part. Dior draws on older traditions of color theory, especially theories that were very popular in the late 19th century. There were manuals that were being published about colors. One that is called Color Harmony in Dress by George Ashdown Audsley. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And so this book basically proposed that women should choose colors according to the occasion, but also the complexion of their skin and the eye and hair color. So that may sound familiar. So what we now know as color analysis echoes those much older ideas, but Dior's approach is far more perspective and moral. He believed that harmony was more important than self-expression. In his book, Dior insists a lot on neutral colors being the foundation of any work. Black, white, gray, and even navy are described as universally appropriate, calming, and elegant. And as I said, he claims that they can be worn at any time for any occasion because it doesn't tire the eyes, but brighter colors on the other end require a lot more discipline. They should be used intentionally, sparingly, and always in dialogue with neutrals. So for Dior, excessive color is not joyful, it is actually exhausting. So taste for him becomes a sort of visual ethics. To dress well is not to create attention, but to create balance. And he thought it was important to respect the eye, both your own and others. In that sense, Dior's vision of color is deeply cultural. It reflects a post-war desire for calm, order, and elegance after years of visual and emotional excess. So now we're going to talk about colors that were not just black, white, navy, and gray. And among those colors, there is one that Dior treated as exceptional, which is red. And he described that color as being energetic and beneficial. And amongst intense colors, it was his favorite color. In 1953, he even launched Rouge Dior, which is a lipstick line of red lipstick. That's why I decided to wear red lipstick today. I thought it would match the vibe of the video since, as you can imagine, Dior wasn't a fan of a lot of colors, but red was one of those colors. And launching a makeup line at that time was a significant move because makeup was becoming an essential extension of fashion. So this fascination that he had for fashion doesn't exist in isolation because from the late 19th century onwards, colors had increasingly been associated with therapeutic and emotional properties. And by the 1940s, chromotherapy was widely discussed in the press. In 1948, a French magazine called Ici Paris published an article called Chromotherapy at the Service of Health. And in that article, the author claims that red generates physical energy, creates strength and warmth. It expresses passion and ardent love. Tempered by a cool color, it sheds its violence while preserving its force. This idea that a red must be controlled to remain elegant resonated deeply with Dior. In his 1950 book called Color Psychology and Color Therapy, Faber Byron, who wrote in Vogue that red packs more excitement. Dior translates this theory directly into fashion practice. He uses red in his first spring-summer collection in 1947, and in 1949, for his second collection for Christian Dior New York, he introduced a theme called Red Like Black, suggesting the idea that red, when properly handled, can function as a neutral like black. That is a radical idea because red is no longer just a statement color, but it is structural. In Dior shows, red never overwhelms, it always appears within a control palette dominated by black, white, and grey. A striking example in the autumn-winter 1956 collection of Dior that is present in the book, and that is the tourbillon dress. So it is that very beautiful red dress that you can see in the book. You can also see here Mr. Dior making a beautiful red design here. I'm gonna leave a picture also on screen so that you can see it better. This dress that I just showed you, the tourbillon dress, the red one, was part of a collection that was mostly composed of black, white, and grey dresses. This logic of using a bright color like red also extends to accessories. In the Little Dictionary of Fashion, he suggests wearing, for example, a red hat with a grey or a black outfit, or a red umbrella with a grey ensemble. We can see that philosophy being applied in a photography taken in 1958, a year after Christian Dior's death, when Yves Saint Laurent was the designer. And in that picture, that is also on the book, but that I will put on screen, you can see a lady wearing a grey outfit, and there is a valet behind her holding a red umbrella. And so once again, we can see that red doesn't exist in excess, but in intention. By the late 1940s and the early 1950s, Christian Dior was becoming more than a designer. He was really becoming an authority on fashion. and a symbol of French taste and elegance. And his vision of colors doesn't exist in a vacuum. It was basically being built in contrasts. And one of the strongest contrasts in Dior's thinking is cultural, and that was Paris versus New York. So when Dior traveled to New York in 1947, he was struck and often disturbed by how excessive colors were there and by what he perceived as an excessive use of color. And he associated American use of color as a commercial spectacle, which was bold, exaggerated, and designed to attract attention very quickly. He compared it to automobile bodywork, shiny, bright, and intentionally eye-catching. And for Joe, that was not elegance, it was a visual noise. But this opposition between French and Anglo-Saxon culture wasn't something that was new. It echoed a much older cultural discourse. As early as 1872, the French philosopher Hippolyte Taine contrasted what he described as loud Anglo-Saxon colors with the subtlety of French tastes. So Dior inherited that idea and adapted it to post-war fashion. In a rapidly modernizing, media-driven world, color became ideological. In Paris, Dior defended those demi-tones as a symbol of discretion and control. And he also thought that colors should suggest rather than impose. But in the United States, in contrast, color functioned as persuasion. It was linked to advertising, mass consumption, and immediate emotional impact. This tension is beautifully staged in the 1957 movie Funny Face. This famous opposition between Think Pink, embodied by the editor Maggie Prescott, and Dior's preferences for more muted rust tones embodied this cultural difference. For this movie exaggerated reality because Dior actually used pink extensively. And American fashion was also a lot more complex than this caricature. But this film, Funny Face, capture a new reality, which is a shift in power, where fashion authority was no longer held by European houses and couturiers, and it was increasingly shaped by American magazines, photographers, and media institutions. And colors was one of the tools of that shift. By defending neutral tones, controlled accents, and halftones, Dior was defending a French vision of elegance at a time where fashion was becoming more global, commercial, and fast moving. Color for him was no longer just aesthetic, it was a visual identity. And in many ways, this debate still remains today. If there is one color that has to define the Dior silhouette in the collective imagination, it's not red, it's actually pink. But it's not just any pink. For Christian Dior, pink was never loud, it was more emotional. And from the very beginning of his fashion house, Dior used pink to redefine femininity after the war. In 1947, when he created the Coral line, which was later nicknamed the New Look, Dior wanted to break from the image of the post-war woman, the woman soldier who was practical, rigid, and almost masculine, and so he created a new archetype of woman, which was more of a flower woman. You can see in his design that he uses softer waistlines, rounded shoulders, flowy fabrics, and tender colors. Pink becomes central to his new vision, but again, Dior avoids extremes. He distanced himself from the artificial electric colors popular before the war, particularly the famous shocking pink created by Elsa Schiaparelli, because he believed that those colors belonged to a world of spectacle, provocation, and excess. Instead, Dior favored demitones like powdery pink, muted blushes, and what he called rose soupir, which means side pink. And we can see this shade of pink in the bonbon dress. That is a design that perfectly captures the idea of the post-war woman. That is a return to softness, pleasure, and emotional comfort. That choice resonates deeply with the cultural climate of the late 1940s and the beginning of the 1950s. After years of austerity, rationing, and loss, pinks offer a visual language that is more reassuring. It kind of speaks of intimacy, care, and renewal. And there was a good response from the public because the bonbon dress was widely reproduced and photographed, particularly in the United States, where pink quickly becomes associated with post-war femininity and prosperity. So Dior really understood the emotional and commercial power of this color. He started integrating pink into advertising, accessories, and signature pieces, including symbols like Cuba in 1954, which really helped to cement this color into the Dior identity. But even when pink became more fashionable and it dominated the media and magazines, Dior wanted to maintain control. He sometimes used brighter tones of pink, like fuchsia, for example, but it remained rare and exceptional. One of the most striking examples of the use of that color is a dress from the Aimant line that is called the Opera Bouffe dress in the autumn-winter 1956 collection. This dress almost feels transgressive within the Dior's otherwise muted universe. And obviously, photography still plays a major role here. Certain images, like the ones taken by Lionel Cazan, amplify this think pink atmosphere, sometimes making Dior designs appear more colorful than they actually were. And yet, despite those moments of intensity, the chromatic identity of Dior remains tied to softness. Pink at Dior is not about visibility. It is the color of femininity imagined as poetic rather than provocative. And so, in that sense, Dior's view of pink is not just a fashion choice, it is a worldview. Even after Christian Dior's death in 1957, the house continued exploring bold color, especially when the designer was Yves Saint Laurent. Dior's chromatic identity remains rooted in balance still today. And so this identity is mostly constituted of powdery tones, half shades, and neutrals that is sometimes punctuated by controlled intensity. So color for Christian Dior was never a random. It was always linked to memory, emotion, culture. It was always a part of a broader commercial strategy. So when we talk about colors, color analysis, seasonal palette, etc., we're obviously not inventing something new. We're inheriting a culture of color that was shaped years ago by photography, but also psychology, commerce, and designers like Christian Dior. TikTok obviously didn't invent our obsession for colors, but it responded to culture of colors that was there all along. I hope you like this first video of my YouTube channel. Hopefully it wasn't too niche. It's a topic that I think is very on trend right now because colors and color analysis and everything that surrounds that topic is, I think, widely talked about on TikTok. I will leave some links to, first of all, the book, the name of the book that I was referencing throughout the video. Also, Loic Prigent's video about Azine Alaya's Dior collection. That is very interesting. It's in French, but you can add English subtitles. Some articles that I found interesting about that topic. I hope you like that video. Don't hesitate to leave comments or questions that you might have about this topic, and I will happily answer them. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!